Welcome, Dr. Smith, to Group 5's presentation. Our members include Amy Benitez, Tara Bowman, Angela Martinez, Christy Willis, and me, Cindy Rich. This PowerPoint will explain how we use the Assure model to effectively plan a lesson on copyright rules for the fictional Mrs. Stewart's ELA class. The A in the Assure model stands for Analyze Learners. This first part of the model asks the teacher to really think about the students and what they need. It includes 3 components. The first one is general characteristics. We decided that 8th graders would be a good age for this lesson, so Mrs. Stewart's class is comprised of 13 and 14-year-olds who attend an urban school. She has a wide range of learners with a few special education students who need more one-on-one help and preferential seating. Most of the students fall into the average range, but there are a few who are advanced readers. The socioeconomic status for the students ranges from middle high to low. The class's ethnicity is evenly split into thirds among Caucasian, African American, and Hispanic students. Like most students their age, they prefer assignments that integrate technology or they can easily lose interest. The second part is specific entry competencies. The students in Mrs. Stewart's class can create and use Word documents, Google Docs, and Google presentations. They can navigate Web 2.0 and utilize these programs and apps. They know how to create digital videos and share them online, and they are used to posting assignments to Schoology.com and Turnitin.com. The last component is learning style. The students in this class learn best visually and kinesthetically. They tend to be more productive in groups when they get to use technology. Mrs. Stewart gives them individual jobs as well to keep them focused and on task during group work. The students can attentively listen to a lecture for about 10 minutes, and then they need an activity to help keep them engaged. After a lecture, she has found that her students enjoy listening to music while they work. They also prefer to collaborate with peers to further explore the information they learned. She knows that they will have more buy-in and be more attentive during the lecture if there is something in it for them afterward. The first S in the Assure model stands for State Standards and Objectives. This part of the model is where the teacher outlines which standards and objectives align with the lesson that was created. According to the AASL Standards Framework for Learners, our lesson plan fits the following standards. B13, engaging with new knowledge to generate a product. C14, sharing that product with an authentic audience. A32, working in a collaborative group. A61 and A62, applying the ethical and legal aspects of gathering and using information, technology, and media, and understanding the ethical and legal aspects of using information, technology, and media. B61 and B62, making ethical decisions when using someone else's work and respecting the intellectual property of others and acknowledging authorship through citations. We decided that if additional assignments were needed to follow up with Mrs. Stewart's class, we could also apply this standard, D14, which addresses ongoing inquiry-based learning and allows for student reflection. Looking through the ISTE standards for students, we found the following standards that would apply to our lesson. 2C, concerning digital citizenship. 6D, focusing on communicating creatively, and 7C, working in a collaborative group. The TLA standards and guidelines addressed with our lesson include enabling students to locate, evaluate, use, and communicate information, where students and educators practice the ethical and legal use of information. That's Strand 1, Dimension 2. Providing access to print and digital resources and integrating these into instructional practices by effectively using and promoting the use of technology and tools in a collaborative setting. That's Strand 4, Dimensions 1 and Dimension 6, which is encouraging students to use intellectual property responsibly, understand copyright rules, and exhibit good digital citizenship. And then the last one is Strand 7, found in the appendix, measuring involvement of students or services to students and teachers. Dimension 3, collaboration with teachers to co-teach, co-create, and co-assess lessons. The learning objectives for our lessons include: students will listen to an audiovisual presentation presented by the librarian on the rules surrounding copyright law, so the students will have some background knowledge. Students will receive a handout that they can refer to that provides definitions of terms used in the presentation, reminds them of consequences, and lists websites for students to further research copyright rules and how the site works. Mrs. Stewart's students will be divided into cooperative groups and will choose a topic from the following 4 choices: copyright, fair use, plagiarism, and public domain. Each group will create an audiovisual public service announcement, or PSA, that expresses the importance of following copyright rules, especially when creating their own documents or videos. Each group will also create an infographic for their topic that includes examples and how they apply to real-life situations. The second S in the Assure model stands for Select Strategies and Resources. In this section, the teacher lists the specific activities in the lesson and the materials or online resources that will be needed. It focuses on 3 main sections. The first is Select Strategies. The strategies presented in our lesson are teacher and student-centered. The librarian and teacher present the information and demonstrate examples of copyright rules to the whole group, which allows all the students to learn the information at the same time. It is reinforced with a handout for students to reference that defines copyright and other relevant terms and provides a list of resources for the students to use. The student activities center around Web 2.0 applications and require students to use them to create a PSA and infographic. These projects allow students to demonstrate what they understand about copyright rules and how they can apply them in their own lives. The second section is Select Resources. Mrs. Stewart's class works in cooperative groups to complete the 2 projects. They use computers and Web 2.0 software programs like Powtoon and Piktochart to create a public service announcement video and infographic. To assess the appropriateness of the technology and media selections, we used these guidelines. The activities are aligned with the learning objectives for the students. Accurate and current information is included in the student handout with up-to-date information about copyright rules. To make sure that all students understand the rules associated with copyrights, the academic vocabulary and terms were written for an 8th grade level. Mrs. Stewart's students are actively engaged because of the integration of technology. They also realize how beneficial this lesson will be because it will help them steer clear of potential copyright violations and consequences for plagiarism. Students will all have access to Web 2.0, which makes assignment creation and communication easier. Web 2.0 contains tools that the students feel comfortable using in class and in their daily lives. The handout and Web 2.0 materials for this lesson do not contain bias. Student expectations are outlined on the rubric, and the handout contains helpful websites for further clarification on copyright rules. And if students need them, tutorials are available for the Web 2.0 tools used in the lesson. The last section is to select materials. An audiovisual presentation was created to teach Mrs. Stewart's class about copyright rules. Students also receive a handout which helps define copyright terms and can serve as a reference while completing their group assignments. Various Web 2.0 tools are available for students to use when creating their own AV presentation, the PSA, and a rubric explains what students are responsible for and how they will be assessed. The U in the Assure model stands for Utilize Resources. In this part of the model, the teacher explains how the resources will be used during the lesson. It focuses on the following 5 components. The first step is to preview resources. The librarian will preview Web 2.0 sites needed for the PSA and infographic to make sure all website links have the required features and are functional and accessible. The next step is to prepare resources. All of the assignments for this lesson are outlined in a rubric that was created. It evaluates the assignments and the student's understanding of copyright use. Chromebooks will be reserved for group collaboration and checked out to Mrs. Stewart's class so they can continue their work in the classroom. After that, the librarian needs to prepare the environment with the teacher. This copyright lesson for students will take place in the school library. The librarian tests the technology to make sure everything is working properly and to make sure students can access the Web 2.0 sites. The infographic will be printed when completed, and the library printers are also checked for sufficient paper and toner. Once the environment is ready, the teacher and librarian will prepare the learners. The librarian will present a Prezi presentation about copyright rules. This will give the students some background knowledge and will review the learning objectives. A handout that defines copyright terms and includes a list of resources will be provided. Students will receive a rubric that outlines the group assignments they will complete and the expectations that need to be met, and will evaluate the students' understanding of copyright rules. The librarian and teacher will check for understanding and answer questions or clarify directions. Finally, the librarian and teacher will provide the learning experience. After the copyright rules presentation, students will work collaboratively with their small groups. The librarian and teacher will monitor the groups as they research their copyright topic for the PSA and gather information for their infographic. Accommodations for the SPED students will be given according to their IEPs as they work in small groups. The R in the ASSURE model stands for Require Learner Participation. It is an expectation that all students will be engaged and collaborate with their group. This part of the model has two main components. It describes what activities the students will complete and how feedback toward the learning objectives will be given. To complete their group projects, the students in Mrs. Stewart's class will use computers, Web 2.0, Chromebooks, and printers. Groups will choose a research topic based on the information and rules presented in the copyright Prezi. Students will use Powtoon to create their group's PSA and Piktochart to design their infographic. The students will need to refer to both the handout and the rubric to ensure that all of the requirements have been met. The finished infographics will be printed in the library. Informal feedback will be provided as the students collaborate and research their copyright topic, making sure that all groups are on the right track. Students are encouraged to refer to the handout and the rubric often as they complete their public service announcement and infographic. The E in the ASSURE model stands for Evaluate and Revise. This is the last part of the ASSURE model and involves student assessment and revision. In the Assessment of Learner Achievement piece, the students' final products are rated by evaluating the strategies and resources. The students' final products, the public service announcement video, and the copyright infographic, are evaluated by the teacher and librarian according to the rubric. After viewing the Prezi, students will be asked how comfortable they feel with understanding, following, and implementing copyright rules. Their comfort level will be gauged again while using the Web 2.0 tools. After completing their projects, students will write a short essay explaining how and if the presentation and handout helped them understand copyright rules. They will also offer suggestions on how the lesson could be improved. The final piece of the ASSURE model is revision. If the rubric results show that the students were not successful implementing the copyright rules into their projects, then necessary revisions will be made to the lesson. Mrs. Stewart and the librarian will also review the students' written reflections and make further revisions if needed. The last slide shows the resources that we used while making this presentation. Please let us know what feedback you have for us. Thank you.